Yeah, I'm all right.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Fine.
The newspapers are sort of like reluctantly admitting that it's a new year. Like on a normal day, you're going to get like 15 newspapers.
Well, they will come.
You have like 7.
They will come back. Don't worry.
Like, what's their problem? I mean, how can you go on break on 24th December and return on 12th January? Like, how?
At least some are functioning.
24th December, and you want to come back next week?
They're probably competing with some state agencies.
Meanwhile, this week there's Parliament is dissolving. Parliament is going, a new parliament, so 7th Parliament is going to dissolve. Yeah, the 8th Parliament is getting inaugurated. President is being sworn in. Court writs flying left, right, center. Otashi no. Ciao. Okay, Joe. No, anyway, let's see the ones which came out. Daily Graphic,
well,
right?
The Daily Graphic says Dagbon Peace biggest feat. Okay. President reviews first term mandate. COVID-19 delivers radiance to State of the Nation address. Serene Insurance meets minimum capital requirement, and political actors' followers must work for peace.
So that's the graphic.
Yes.
What about the Times?
The Times says, at the State of Nation address, will fix economy ravaged by COVID-19.
Okay.
President promises Ghanaians. NTC gets new managing director. Minority reacts to State of Nation address.
Then there's the guide.
Daily Guide. It says, I've been given clear mandate, says Akufo-Addo. Court foils NDC coup at Tichimans.
Yeah, man.
Supreme Court clears Amewu and Nana EC file appearance.
So that's the guide. What about the Finder?
The Finder says first term gains laudable. We will consolidate them in second term. Nanado. After to boost industrialization drive, the president is speaking. 13 heads of state to participate in president's investiture. Sukriza distributors launch Happy Family Rice.
How did that find its way to the front page? You know, you're reading inauguration and heads of state. No, they've added some rice something B page 2. Charlie Elvis, what's his name?
Elvis Daku.
Elvis Daku. Pardon of you.
MPP nominates Speaker Parliamentary Leadership.
Charlie?
And Supreme Court quashes injunction on Amewu.
Sukriza rice.
Yeah, Sukriza. The publisher says, I have clear mandate of Ghanaians for 4 more years. The Akufo-Addo speaks. Supreme Court quashes injunction on Amewu. Chief of Staff contributed to Nanado's success. President Ouattara 11 others to participate in Akufo-Addo's investiture. And Prof. Jampo on State of the Nation address. Akufo-Addo sounded indecisive on Galamsey.
Galamsey is problematic. So that's which are the publishers? Is it the Ghanaian publisher?
No, this is the Ghanaian publisher.
All right, now let me take you online since you have the newspapers. I'll start with citynewsroom.com. The lead story there is small-scale miners welcome Akufo-Addo's call for dialogue on Galamsey. Then Techiman South, court dismisses NDC's injunction against Mensa Kosa. Other stories, minority slum, Gestapo-style invasion of parliament by security personnel. Do you know Gestapo?
Yes. Hitler's...
Charlie, the language of the... So the story is saying minorities have slammed that particular security presence. In other stories, 126 private schools have collapsed. Since COVID-19 began. This is according to NACOPS. 126 private schools have collapsed. Meanwhile, Nana Akufo-Addo State of the Nation addressed a sharp contrast to reality according to Arana Idrisu. Now, still in terms of websites, ECG issues guidelines for implementation of extended free electricity for Lifeline consumers. Now, let me take you to My Joy Online. The lead story there, NDC nominates Babin for Speaker of Parliament. Also, Amewu gets green light to take seat in 8th Parliament. And then Akufo-Addo's fight against Galamsey cost him votes in 2020 polls. This is according to John Pong Kroma. And then another also says it's a good thing Mahama has gone to court. Now, if you go to Star FM, Sal trial, Supreme Court judges played ostrich according to Kwekwaza. Also, 2020 elections was free and fair according to Akufo-Addo. And then another says food is in abundance or it's in abundance in Ghana. GNA, Supreme Court quashes High Court injunction against Amewu. And then we also have Ghana begins trial trading under the AFTA agreement. And Akufo-Addo's last sona was unimpressive according to the minority. Then I'll take you to the BBC. We are told that Georgia Senate race on a knife edge in vote count. And yeah, that's the main story there. So US Congress is still in the news. All right, Nathan, so this is what I think we should do. Let's start with the Times.
Okay.
What's your big story there?
Address. Do you want to?
Yeah, of course, Sona.
Okay. So that's on page 16.
Okay.
Page 16 and 17 of the Ghanaian Times. So we'll fix economy ravaged by COVID-19. Now Yauche writes, the president Nana Akufo-Addo has given the assurance that his next administration will implement prudent fiscal measures to quicken the pace of restoring the country's economy from the ravages of the COVID-19 pandemic. The president, in his final address on the State of the Nation to Parliament yesterday, said his next government would provide further details on measures to be taken to restore the country back to the path of economic recovery when it presents the 2021 budget to Parliament in March.
Now, Godfred has other stories on State of the Nation, different angles. The
Dagbon,
graphic is talking about
Dagbon peace, biggest feat.
Okay.
President reviews first term mandate.
All right.
President Nana Akufo-Addo has said resolving the Dagbon chieftaincy crisis was one of the highlights of the 4-year tenure of his government. Quote, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to report that our undertaking to bring peace to Dagbon has been successful. For decades, this ancient and proud kingdom had been bedeviled with conflict. Since 2002, when a fresh eruption of the conflict ended in the tragic killing of my friend, Yana Yakubu Andani II, Dagbon became designated as a troubled land. It then goes on to talk about how the peace was achieved. Quote, I admit freely that it was one of the highlights of the past 4 years for me as President of the Republic. I was happy, not just because a long-running problem had finally been resolved, but also because I know that the development and modernization of our country that we all desire can only happen when there is peace and unity in Ghana. He also spoke about the banking crisis in the SONA. And if you listen to him, he says, if truth be told, many of the finance houses were running what can only be called glorified Ponzi schemes and had lured many depositors into these schemes. We're in a desperate situation and urgent radical measures needed to be taken to prevent the collapse of the entire financial and the banking sectors.
Other things he said, captured on citynewsroom.com, December 7 poll was free and fair. This story is also on our website. President has insisted that the December 7 election was free and fair despite the allegations of irregularity and rigging being put out by the opposition NDC. According to the president, the people of Ghana on December 7 gave him a clear mandate to govern the country for 4 more years. Now let's give you some quick reactions to the State of the Nation, not least from the minority. Now the one I have here is from Haruna Idrisu, who's the minority leader, and he says that State of the Nation address in sharp contrast with reality. Now the minority in Parliament strongly believes the economic conditions in the country and the challenges facing the ordinary Ghanaian are in sharp contrast to what the president painted in his State of the Nation address. Don't forget, the president also said food prices have come down.
Yes.
Quite a number of things have been achieved. Now, the story says Akufo-Addo in his last address said the government has been able to stabilize the economy within the last 4 years, adding that there has been a major transformation in the lives of Ghanaians. But speaking to the media after the address, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu accused the president of doing too little for the citizenry and failing to improve the general standards of living in the country, leaving many in abject poverty. So this will be debated next week, so we don't need to go too much into this.
Also, the graphic takes another angle on page 16. COVID-19 delivers radiance to SONA. Yesterday's State of the Nation address delivered by the President in Parliament that drew down the curtains on the first term of President Nana Akufo-Addo could be described as unique in many ways. First, the spectre of the COVID-19 pandemic revealed itself as the entire setup for the event was very different from what Ghanaians have come to know. Unlike previous SONAs, which were held in the Chamber of Parliament, this year's was held in a structured tent. The giant tent mounted at the forecourt of the State House accommodated all invited guests, and all the COVID-19 safety protocols were strictly enforced. Now, according to this paper, yesterday's event also served as a dress rehearsal to the inauguration of the President-elect, Nana Akufo-Addo, and the Vice President-elect, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia.
Now, let's go to the parliamentary side of things. So we have the cases, the Ameu one, the fact that the Supreme Court has quashed the Ho's injunction. Then there's the failed injunction against Techiman South MP-elect Ajay Mensah Kosa, and then a couple of other parliamentary stories, if you have them.
Okay, page 3 of the Ghanaian Times says Supreme Court tosses injunction against Peter Ameu. Now the story says the Supreme Court yesterday quashed the ruling of the whole High Court given on December 23, 2020 to pave the way for Mr. John Peter Ameu, Member of Parliament-elect for Hohoi, to be part of the 8th Parliament, which comes into effect on midnight of today, January 6. The court, speaking through Justice Yao Appel, acknowledged that the issues before before the whole High Court relates to fundamental human rights of the people of Sancho Kofi, Akpafu, Lolobi, and Likpe, but the orders given by the court were in the nature of election petition that could only be pursued under Article 99 of the 1992 Constitution and Section 16 of the PNDC Law 284. It said Mr. Amewu presented himself to contest the Hohoe constituency parliamentary election, that he was not an agent of the EC and could not be held accountable for the quote sins end quote committed by the electoral body.
So basically, the Supreme Court has dealt with one side of the issue, but has also opened the way for another part of the issue to be continued in the whole court.
Yes. Now, if you go to page 20 of the Daily Graphic, it says that the court further dismissed an order of prohibition by the AG to prohibit Justice Boedi from hearing the rest of the cases at the whole High Court, which related to the alleged human rights violations. This means the case will continue at the whole High Court, but it will only be on the merits of the alleged human rights violations against the people of Sao by the EC, and not whether or not Mr. Amewu was validly elected to represent the people of the Hohoe constituency in
Which is interesting, because this morning on our news now, the MPP is now saying they are looking for Kofi Adams to serve him with a writ, which we don't know whether it will suffer the same fate, because if you listen to the judgment on this particular case, it's basically saying Amewu has done nothing wrong, leave him out of this, go and do your petition. So in saying they're also looking for Kofi Adams in the adjoining constituency, we don't know whether that's what they'll say, of course, but let's go to Techiman South, because there's another one there, and this one is also pretty straightforward. The Wenchi High Court, presided over by Justice Frederick Arnold Nawura, has dismissed the motion for an interim injunction seeking to restrain Martin Ajeme Sakosa from presenting himself to Parliament to be sworn in as MP for Techiman South. So we are seeing a trend here. The courts are saying, let the guys go. If you're going to deal with a petition, deal with the person who organized the election, but the person who's been elected hasn't done anything, essentially. Now, NDC parliamentary candidate for constituency of Techiman South, Christopher Behere, filed a suit seeking the court to restrain EC from gazetting Ajeme Sakosa as MP elect for the constituency. Justice Fred Arnold Nawura said in his ruling that he shall refuse the ex parte injunction application. He goes on to say, I think the people of Techiman South need a representative at the swearing in. To injunct the first respondent will be unfair. At the end of the trial, if it is established that the election was not done properly, I shall make my orders. I hereby refuse the application. Very similar to the whole matter. The seat has been in contention by the two leading political parties, MPP and NDC.
Staying with Parliament, NDC have proposed their own speaker as well, their candidate.
Yesterday we told you that Citi News had gathered that information.
Yes.
That it was Bagbin.
Bagbin, yes. So page 17 of Daily Graphic has that story, that the Functional Executive Committee of the National Democratic Congress has nominated the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Albert S.K. Bagbin, for Speaker in the 8th Parliament. The nomination of the current MP for Nadoli Kaliu followed the FEX meeting in Accra yesterday. It also retained its leadership for the 8th Parliament, nominating the current Minority Leader, Mr. Haruna Idris, as the Majority Leader, the Deputy Minority Leader, Dr. James Klucha Veji, as the Deputy Majority Leader, and the Minority Chief Whip, Mr. Mohammed Mubarak Muntaka, as the Chief Whip. Others are First Deputy Minority Whip, Mr. Ibrahim Ahmed, as First Deputy Majority Whip, and Second Deputy Minority Whip, Mrs. Comfort Doyo Kujo, as the Second Deputy Majority Whip. Now, note the
majority.
Yes.
And yesterday, Umar Sanda interviewed the current Majority Leader and asked him whether it's possible for a government side to be minority. Some very interesting answers came. We'll play that interview for you. Just a quick one here, Nathan, before you come in. The interview we did with a former Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Kenji says, there should be consensus building in this 8th Parliament if Parliament is to survive. Now, former Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Kennedy Rasa, has advised members of the yet to be inaugurated 8th Parliament to learn to work together as a unit to make the House a success. According to him, the 8th Parliament should learn to, quote, build bridges, trade horses, and give and take. After all, it is the nation that stands to suffer or gain when we are unable to reconcile ourselves properly. So that's one for the parliamentarians to learn from.
Well, if you go to page 13 of the Finder, it talks about fire. Now, in Keta and Anglonga assemblies in 2020, 24 major fires were recorded. Now, the Anglonga fire officer of the Ghana National Fire Service, ADO1, Janet Womevo, has revealed that the Anglonga district and Keta municipality recorded a total of 24 major fire cases in 2020, a situation she described as alarming. She said the major causes of the fire outbreak recorded in these two municipal and district assemblies were negligence on the part of citizens, uncontrolled bush burning, and faulty electrical wiring for homes and workplaces. Now, according to ADO1 Womerville, they always bring the residents together to sensitize them on the cause of fire outbreaks and also revisit the areas to investigate in case there is a fire incident.
Now, there's a story here that should trouble all of us. 126 private schools have collapsed since COVID-19 began. This is NACOPS. Story on citynewsroom.com. It says data from the Ghana National Council for Private Schools, NACOPS, shows that a total of 126 private schools in the country have collapsed as of Monday, January 4, 2021, due to the challenges brought on the schools by the impact of COVID-19. The pandemic, among other things, has left many of the schools in a state of financial difficulty, bankruptcy, and insolvency, making it difficult for many of them to operate as the nationwide resumption of schools approaches. The council has also identified the failure of regulatory agencies such as National Inspectorate Board, SNIT, and GRA to ensure flexible terms of cooperation during their hard times. In a statement, the Greater Accra region topped the list with 16 collapsed schools, followed by Northern region where 13 schools had become non-operational. Ashanti region came third with 11 closed schools. Now, NACOP said the closure of these schools means that an average of 37,800 students have been affected due to the unfortunate development. An average of 2,394 teachers had also become redundant from these schools. And then it gives a full list and breakdown. It says most of the schools sacked teachers during the lockdown because NIT took them to court over contributions. Oh boy. So they had to sack the teachers to be safe. GRA threatened the schools with closure. They had to go to their office and plead. The NIB, this is Inspectorate Board, which regulates the schools, wants to police the schools rather than and ensure their sustenance, checking the schools for standards and registration other than sustenance. Out of frustration, most schools sat on bank loans, sold off the school property. They changed infrastructure to rent and essentially couldn't run as going concerns anymore.
We'll keep an eye on that story going forward.
But this is really troubling. You know, when people were asking government for bailout for schools, I and some people suggested instead of asking government for money, rather than renegotiate some of these SNIT and things taxes, so you can run. Yeah. Because how much will government give you? And what will you use that money for?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, let me give you a quick update, and then Nathan has another story for you. So the fumigation and disinfection of schools starts today. Okay. So that's a quick update.
Okay, Nathan?
From the Ghanaian publisher.
Yes, on page 26 of the Daily Graphic, since we're talking about children and all, father accomplice jailed 13 years for trafficking 2 sons.
Seriously?
Now, a father who sold his 2 sons to a fisherman for the business of fishing has been sentenced to 8 years imprisonment in hard labor. Mauli Sosu, a 43-year-old mason from Keta, sold his 2 sons aged 18 and 15 to the fisherman David Akwetebo, who resides at Tewekpo, an island near Tokranu in the Dambai district on the Volta region, to fish on the Volta Lake. The father was reported to have been paid 300 cedis as yearly fee for each of his sons. The court also sentenced Sosu to 7 years on the crime of provision of trafficked persons, 8 years on the human trafficking charges, and 5 years for the charge of conspiracy.
These are very troubling stories. Now, I have another one here, which is not that bad, actually. This is really to do with the free electricity. Now, the ECG is issuing guidelines for implementation of the extended free electricity for lifeline consumers. So, Electricity Company of Ghana says it has put adequate measures in place to implement the extension of the COVID-19 electricity relief to citizens, as announced by the President recently. It said it is committed to ensuring the free distribution of electricity for the months of January, February, and March 2021. In a statement, the company said Lifeline customers on both prepaid and postpaid metering system will continue to benefit from the relief package, and it also gives some modalities as to how that was going to happen. There's also a lot of roadblocks in Accra ahead of the swearing in, and I need to let you know this.
Yeah, I can give you some information on that.
Yes.
If you go to page 45 of the Daily Graphic, you will get the traffic diversions that are coming. So the roads to be closed are the Osu Cemetery traffic light on the local street, the Castle Road from AU Circle to Osu Cemetery traffic light, the Cross Road heading towards Starless 95 Street, the Independence Arch near the Ohenejan Stadium, the Gamal Abdul Nasser Avenue, that's the GIJ Road, on the Haile Selassie Street, and the Opebia 37 Military Interchange and Akweje on the Liberation Road.
Now, Ghana begins training under AFTA agreement, and this is a good one. GNA reports that the president Tuesday officially signaled the beginning of Ghana's trading relations with African countries under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area AfTA agreement. Now, this means that Ghanaian entrepreneurs and manufacturers can start trading and exporting goods to countries that had signed and ratified the agreement, which took effect January 1 this year. Delivering an address at a business forum to appraise stakeholders on Ghana's implementation arrangement for a seamless trade under the agreement, the President Akufo-Addo said that the start of trading under the AfTA represents an important step towards realizing the goal of continental integration. He said the development was pivotal for job creation, industrialization, and sustainable development for the youth of Ghana, adding that the government will ensure that Ghanaian businesses derive maximum benefits from the AfTA agreement. Think about how big Brexit is with EU and UK negotiating a trade deal that has taken them over 2 years. And think about the little things we trade with each other. The fact that we don't manufacture a lot is a very serious situation. We have a big AfTA we've signed in January. I don't even know how many things we sell to Nigeria or Togo. You know, see how big Brexit is with trade issues taking them 2 years to negotiate. And what are we trading with our African people?
Well, we are exporting tubers.
No, it's a serious situation.
But quickly, Bernard, let me sneak in one story before you sack me.
Yes.
Address traffic congestion at Accra's exit entry points. And this is coming from the pastor of the Tema West district of the EP Church.
Okay.
Reverend Emmanuel N224. He has listed some rules that he says the government needs to deal with in 2021.
Mention them.
He mentioned the Dawenya Miocho Central University stretch to Tema Pramprankpon junctions on the Tema Flower Road, Ofanko Barrier to John Tay area, and the Kaswa Toll Booth and Weja Junction as examples. He therefore called on the government to get its engineers to do serious re-engineering.
I agree with him.
And if possible, construct interchanges.
Fantastic. Thank you, Godfred Akoto Boafo, and thank you, Nathan Kwao. That was a newspaper review. Coming up next is the Citi Business News. Stay with us.
Charlie, check this.